How's it going?
Zachary, my friend, how are you doing, man?
I am just now getting off work. I'm wore out.
Well, that's the case I mostly get from most of the fighters I interview. They're either tired from work or they're tired from training. So take your pick.
That's where I'm going right when I leave here to training. So
That's awesome, man. I guess I gotta ask. You were mentioning that you just got home from work. So whereabouts? What do you do for work?
my father-in-law owns a flooring business, so I'm a floor installer.
Okay,
Uh, so it's flexible with training.
nice, nice. And I guess like that's one thing that is probably worked in your advantage during when the first year of the whole COVID era. I think like is that something that kind of helped you out, with because like because a lot of the promotions were canceled, everything was kind of put on hold. So did you have the job to kind of give you insurance?
Yeah, yeah. And we had a lot of guys, a couple guys get together, and we still we get outside and we'd run together and hold mitts for each other and still get our training in. Make sure we were getting all of our workouts in every day. So.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's interesting that from a perspective of yourself that you've had to kind of work a job on the side while training and while taking fights versus people that may not have to be in that situation, but their issues that now they can't get a fight. So is it kind of bittersweet that you're in that situation at the time?
Yeah, yes, you could say so.
Hmm. Well, and I know that Texas recently they're starting to allow fans in like stadiums. I guess I know UFC is working on something in Texas right now with one of their cards. Does that kind of make you excited about having all the fans come back? I mean, hopefully they'll do something like that in Arkansas.
Well, so our show, the Brian Foster, the owner of our gym and kind of one of the owners of our show, he, our gym's independently owned. And so our gym's actually big enough. We actually threw fights in our gym.
No way, man.
We're
That's
actually to have a good number of people come to the shows. And then also Oklahoma really never closed down like the other states.
okay.
So as long as people wore masks, we were selling out the convention center in Oklahoma.
That's
Still have
unbelievable.
hundreds of people come to the fights. So
Wow, that's unbelievable. Because you're talking to a guy who's living in Ontario, Canada, when we've been since last summer, or besides last summer, we've just been in the shitstorm. Everything's always shut down, and I guess we like to criticize the states and how I don't want to get political, but how Trump's really how he really kind of dealt with everything there. But we've really been in the shitter since besides the summer of last year. So I mean, props to you guys over there in Arkansas.
yeah, we've stayed open as best we could, and made sure we stayed in contact. And when everything closed down, everybody. You go to Walmart and there wasn't a fishing pole on the shelf. Everybody was buying all the poles and, going fishing. So even when you go to the lakes, there's not very many lakes. Well, there's lots of lakes, but not family appropriate lakes and stuff like that you can go to and fish. So every lake around here is just packed full of people.
Yeah, yeah, and that's an issue that we are finding here, like because our all of our gyms closed down. I not just like in where I'm from, like I think they even closed all like the MMA gyms, BJJ gyms. Like really, all we have is really BJJ gyms here. But they closed down everything. So you want to go out to Walmart, you want to work out at home, you want to get training at home. They had jack shit. Like it was all cleared out. Like you're fucked if you didn't if you
Yeah.
didn't have anything.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, they were in Arkansas and Oklahoma area. They were talking about if you get caught with your gym open and stuff like that, they'll actually come in. The city will come in and put locks on your doors until it's over and possibly even be fined. So there was only a point about 3-4 weeks where our gyms were completely shut down.
Okay, so that's not too bad. That's not too bad. So how long has it been since that's happened?
Um, 2 months, 3 months. So, or actually even longer than that. It may have been about 6 months. It was first when everything really hit really hard, and everybody was really scared from it. As soon as I guess people have been getting shots like for the COVID vaccine and stuff for about 6 months now. So yeah, about 6 months.
Do you think like there's an idea that they should also prioritize the athletes as well?
I mean, I definitely believe that like medical and everybody working in hospitals are definitely more important. Elder more important
For sure.
But yeah, at some point, we're MMA, football, baseball, basketball. All of those are what people do to get away. So that's people are using that as their away time. So if they want to go watch games and stuff like that, we've got to be able to perform too for them to get away to do that.
Yeah, and I think it kind of comes hand in hand. Like, of course, I think health field, elderly, they should be done first, and then when it comes to between them and the general public, I definitely do think the athletes should be a priority next. Just because if the fighters can't put on the show because they're all getting sick, well, then the fans can't come in, and it all comes in a circle.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
But I guess big question is, at least in the United States, are we past COVID now?
I think so. I mean, I think it's 2020. It's that's in the past. I think COVID got left in 2020.
Well, I think it's easier for you to say that because we just got into lockdown last week, and now now we got a curfew shit, and it's unbelievable. And gym's closed again, training's done. It's just it's unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah, I couldn't imagine. That training's rough. It's just it's a part of who you are. You get fat real fast.
Yeah.
You don't have any fights scheduled, so it's rough.
Anyway, I do want to kind of move. Sorry.
We're lucky to have it.
Absolutely. I do want to kind of move forward here, though. So let's just kind of talk about you here now. So what got you into MMA in the first place?
Man, I have a pretty extensive wrestling background. Wrestled my entire life. Late high school, I got in a car accident and hurt myself pretty bad. So I got out of wrestling. I didn't do any kind of combative sports for a long time. And then, I got to that itch, like I've got to do something. I want to do something. And I have a lot of people that were in MMA, and they'd been telling me, man, you'd be good. And so I was like, well, I'll give it a try. And then, I'm still mediocre. I'm not good yet.
Well, and I kind of want to bring that up. So, I mean, you're 5-4, obviously not the record that you probably want at the moment, with your pro record, sorry. But you're only 24. So is it kind of bittersweet that, you're not 34, with that kind of record? Like, are you kind of glad that, you have time to develop?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And a lot of people look at my record, man. You're a mediocre fighter. You have a 5-4 record. You're almost at a 50%. But you go look at 10 guys, 10 other fighters, and that are outside of my gym and a select few other gyms, and you look at their records, and if they have a 7-1, 7-2, 8-0 record, you go look at the guys they're fighting, and they're fighting chumps. They're fighting cupcakes. There's not one guy in our gym that's barely fought a guy with a losing record.
Yeah, it's almost like a little bit of boxing going on there, eh?
Yeah.
Literally, but, I mean, you can have an impressive record. You can be 50-0, but you're fighting guys that just stepped in the fucking cage. Like it's.
I've seen guys with a 5-0 record still fighting debuts.
Oh, that's insane.
My first fight was against a 4-1 guy at a Team Alpha Male.
Wow.
Yeah. And every other picture on Facebook or Instagram is with Cody Garbrandt or what's his name? Oh, Buttchin.
I know who you're talking about. Uriah. Yeah.
Every picture on gloves with them, but I've no guy I've fought has had a losing record has been an easy fight. So
and that's sorry.
We'll find the toughest guy we can every time and fight him. So.
And that's just it. Like, I think the idea about records shouldn't really matter. I mean, it's who you fight, when you fought, and if you take someone who's 13-0, but you look at the guys that he's beaten or the girls that she's beaten, I think it matters more about who you fought than just your record, because it really determines how. And it's not just your record, but it helps you in the long run. If you just get a bunch of easy fights all at once, and then what happens is you get into a promotion and they feed you a guy that's like a higher skill set than you, then you're a little fucked, and
yeah.
And I think like that's what people miss. People don't understand. And it kind of reminds me of like UFC. So I think anybody that gets in that high level competition, you can hang in there with anybody. But the issues that a lot of guys get is a lot of guys come in undefeated, and they come in and they've been able to beat everybody, but then they go in and they experience what it's like to really get someone that's going to match their skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sorry, go ahead. I keep interrupting here.
Oh, you're good. You're good. My entire career, I'm always sitting there thinking, man, I hate the day that I meet somebody that's just like me, that's going to grit their teeth, bite down in their mouthpiece and just swing, And my last fight, I met that guy and I learned a lot. Learned a lot in my last fight, from how to take a punch and return one and not give up in rough moments. So.
Mm-hmm. Now your last opponent was Ben Shapiro, I think it was.
Dan Shapiro.
I'm sorry.
Dan Shapiro.
Yeah. He's coming up there too. Like he's around the same spot that you are. So that's a pretty good matchup that you still had, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Taking nothing away from him. We fought in his hometown. Split decision. I think could have went either way.
Mm-hmm.
I remember coming out in the third round and touching gloves with him, and he smiled at me and said, "Let's get it. Let's go. I'm ready."
Mm-hmm. And I guess like, what has been kind of like the biggest lesson that you've learned so far about yourself and in the art of MMA?
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt like everybody thinks it does. Most fighters will get in there and they're scared to get in there and fight because they're scared of getting hit, because they don't want to feel the hurt. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't hurt. You just go in there and you do your thing and you get out. If you get knocked out, you wake up. It doesn't hurt. You don't remember it, honestly. So.
Yeah. I know there's a story that my father told me, and he talked about how there's this guy that did mixed martial arts. He got into it a little bit later, and he was fighting somewhere in Michigan, and he had to pass all these physicals because of his age, all these, like I guess he had to do like CT scans, all that kind of stuff. And his wife, and so his purse was only so much, and his purse kind of had to cover most of his medical stuff. So his wife asked him, she says, "Well, okay, so you're going to go in there and fight, but you're really not going to make any money. So why would you go and fight?" He says, "Because I don't mind getting punched in the face."
There's only one guy in the fighting scene that really doesn't like to get punched in the face. That's Floyd Mayweather, man. The only guy that it bothers so much that he stays away from it. But
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Most fighters punch. So.
Mm-hmm. But I guess like most of your wins have been finishes. So I mean, is that something you enjoy? Do you like getting that quick finish? Do you like the wars? Do you like the brawling? What is it that you enjoy the most?
Man, there's something that our coach Brian Foster, he's just like kind of drilled into our heads. It's, if you leave the fight to the judges, most of those judges have never been in a cage. They don't know what they're doing. So if you leave it up to them, they can make it go either way. If you go into a fight and you finish it, the outcome. You won for sure, 100%.
Yeah, and that's kind of an issue. A lot of the fighters that I've had on my podcast, we kind of discussed about judging and how it needs to change a little bit. And you brought up the best. A lot of these judges have never been in a fight themselves, never really trained themselves. They don't really understand. Sorry, they understand the game, but they don't. They've never really been in there. They don't understand what it takes to win a fight and what techniques can win a fight. So whether that means you control the ground game for X amount of time in a fight versus putting someone in a bloody mess. I think there needs to be a bit of a change to the judging because a lot of guys get screwed over. That being said, you never want to leave it to the judges.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Like, what do you think is the best approach? Does it have to be? Do we have to have former fighters become the judges? What is it there needs to be to have a change?
And honestly, I don't know because I couldn't sit in a judge's seat and decide the outcome, the career of another man, of how their career plays out, because it's only one loss or one win that can change somebody's life in the cage.
Yeah, and I guess we have to understand that judges are human, but at the same time, you're kind of juggling with someone's career, and that being said, someone's career is their life, so there has to be something that needs to be done.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, sir.
So I guess moving on, what do you enjoy training the most? Is there anything that you enjoy? Do you like standing up? Do you like the ground, the clinching? What is it you enjoy the most?
So growing up, I've wrestled, so I love the aspect, but I've really taken a like to standing and banging it out with someone, man. Even though I fought Brennan McKissick. And the kid's been kickboxing his entire life. He's grown up around the sport. His dad's fought his entire life. And everybody's like, oh, man, as soon as you get in the cage, you just take him down and beat him up. Do not stand with the guy. And so I had a mindset, and I told everybody, I'm not – there's no way in the world that I'm going to go in there and I'm going to take this dude down. We're going to go in there and I'm going to stand and fight with him. Yeah. And I got my ass whooped for 2 rounds, got my ass whooped. And but I've since that fight, my stand up, my head movement, everything's gotten better. But I've learned that you've got to have your own game plan. You can't base what you do off somebody else. So training wrestling, man, is probably one of my favorites. Just train it. Learn to use my wrestling to set up my striking. So
I think that's one of the biggest things that any fighter can learn is, you can shoot for someone's legs any day. You can do it. You might be able to take them down. You might not. But if you don't understand how to set them up with your striking, you're kind of screwed. Because everybody is now a bit of a mixed martial arts. It's not back in the day where someone specialized in Muay Thai, someone specializing in jiu-jitsu or wrestling. Everyone's kind of have a bit of a base and being well-rounded. And you kind of have to be these days.
Have to, yeah. The athletes, the kids that are growing up into athletes nowadays are they're wild. They're born and bred to do nothing but that sport, whether it's baseball, football, mixed martial arts. They're training from day one. So 100%. It's hard to, if I'm a life and you got a guy, we've got a few guys from our gym that are just from the day they've been born, that's what they've been doing, is every bit of it. And you try to wrestle them and then they beat you in wrestling and you're like, oh shit, I can't stand up with them. What do I do? So.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, and it reminds me, I was watching, I'm a huge hockey guy, and me being a typical Canadian, loving hockey, but they talked about how in any kind of sport now, the evolution of athletes and evolution of these kids growing up and just showing people this new era of fighting or a new era of skills in any kind of sport. It's amazing how much the fighters have evolved.
Oh yeah, it's wild. And young kids too. You'll see. Mm-hmm. I've been on Facebook, and you'll click on one video and you'll just keep scrolling, and you see 10-year-olds that have the muscle mass of a 21-year-old or an 18-year-old, and they're
scary,
freaking wild, man.
Mm-hmm.
Running, 4.5 flat 40s at 10 years old.
Have you seen that one video? I think it's some girl. She's Russian or something, and she is skinny little tree, but she's she's just literally just like she's just going so hard at it, and she's like breaking the bark off the tree. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Is that insane?
And then you got the two brothers that are like blooding each other's noses and stuff like that with their like badass boxing skills that they have. So
yeah, and I think it's a kind of it's a good thing. Like I don't look at that as a negative thing. Like wow, these kids are beating the shit out of each other. No, I mean I don't. I think like they got to be careful, but I think it's a good thing. It's a good outlet for a lot of people who, whether they have things going on in their life. I think it's a good discipline factor as well. Especially if you can learn to apply those skills and maintain discipline. I think it's a great thing for kids to grow up with. But anyway, like you talking about getting in some of these fights, getting your ass whooped. So like, what's like probably the worst injury you ever gotten from a fight, if you have?
Yeah, my most recent fight. I'm not sure if it was from I threw a hard overhand right and just completely missed, and my shoulder popped out of place.
Oof.
And and it popped back in itself. And later in the fight, I grabbed a guillotine and jumped for it. And when I was squeezing, my shoulder popped out of place again. My shoulder separated again. And that's the worst injury I've had. Other than like hurt nerves or muscles or something on my leg from being kicked. Those really weren't injuries. It was just sore and hurt. But my shoulder probably the worst.
And I guess like with these injuries, do you think a lot when you have an injury mid-fight, do you think that is a strong indicator for someone to lose a fight, if that makes any sense? Like when people watch fights and you see someone lose a fight and everyone thinks, oh, because this guy was better. But do you think the strong thing is injuries and it really does impact in a fight?
Yeah, man, I don't know. Yeah, 100%. I don't know very many fighters that go into a fight at 100%.
They say they do, but they're not.
No, I don't think I've ever gone into a fight at 100% because I'm working my ass off for months before a fight, and going hard in the gym every single day. And I'm sore, I'm hurting. And usually the last week is when you take it easy and you're sitting in the sauna and your body's recovering, you're taking your ice baths, and your body's just not recovered, especially at weight and stuff like your body's just not recovered. Not very many fighters are 100% when they go into the cage, I don't think.
Like, so with being a fighter yourself, obviously they have to give you medicals. They have to make sure they check you probably before the fight, I would assume. How like, what is it that you do if you had some injury and you wanted to fight through it? What would you have to do to kind of hide that kind of thing? If you can lay that out for me.
The local scene, it's probably not that hard because the doctors aren't used to seeing, very many fighters. So, but if you have like broken fingers or something, like they're not going to let you fight. Like they check all your knuckles, all your joints. They make you do some duck walking and some weird stuff. They make you do a few push-ups, make you breathe. They do make sure you don't have, they're pretty good at making sure you don't have any heart conditions or breathing problems, any high blood pressure. They make sure all of that. But man, if my shoulder was hurt, they would never know. If my knee was hurting, they would never know.
Right. And do you think are they responsible for that kind of thing, or should that kind of be on the fighter's terms?
What do you mean? Like
say if you went into a fight with a broken shoulder and you said, no, fuck it, I'm going to fight, I don't care what anybody says. Do you think that's still up to them to find out that that's going on? Or should you be able to say, hey, no, I want to fight, let me fight?
I believe that you should be able to sign a waiver, but signing that waiver, you're also throwing away like any other injuries you may get. So like signing that waiver and my shoulders are hurt, but then I break my leg in the fight, then their insurance isn't going to cover it. My own insurance has got to cover that now. So, I mean, it's, it's a rough.
You can't really have it both ways.
Yeah. And injuries are going to happen in just about every fight. I've had a fight, man. I had three of my finishes have happened within a minute and a half. Two being submissions, one being a knockout of the opponent, knocking the opponent out or choking the other opponent out, and not ever being touched in the fight without getting hit one time. And I still wake up the next morning hurting and sore from that fight. Just because the adrenaline, the muscle tensing, and everything working at a very, very, very high pace and all your adrenaline. So
sorry.
No, you're still very sore, yeah, from even the shortest amount of time in a cage.
So what is it that you do when you're experiencing that soreness? Is there things that you do to help yourself relax? What's a post-fight ritual that you would partake in?
Man, there's a few things. We go, I don't know if you've heard of the cryotherapy.
What is it?
Cryotherapy.
Is that the stuff where you stand in that like machine and it shoots out like steam and stuff?
Well, it's not steam. It's actually like cold air. It gets up to like a negative 170 degrees.
Oh, wow.
And you get in for like 3 or 4 minutes and it just, like pretty much freezes your whole body. But it feels good. It makes you feel a lot better. Then they'll do like compression therapy, set in the sauna again, replenishing your body, lots of water, rehydration, lots of rest, ice, ice, compression, elevation, the rice method. So
do you think there's a fighter, Elias Theodoro, and he's actually the first legit MMA fighter that's been able to have marijuana while competing. Is that something that all fighters should be able to do after training or before training? Obviously not used in a fight.
I think yes, 100% yes. That is proven to be a great for your body. And helping, I can't think of the word, but like replenishing your body, getting your body better, pretty much relaxing your body and giving it time to heal. But I think UFC is the only major organization that was against it, which now I guess they're not currently testing for it. But I think no, actually Bellator does test for it, but I don't think any like local organizations or anything like that really test for it.
I don't think that they should.
No, I don't think that they should either.
Because, and I don't think that. Sorry, go ahead. I keep interrupting you. I feel so bad.
Most states legal, whether it be recreational or medical. So, a lot of people, you can go to the doctor and say you have arthritis or you have trouble sleeping at night, and they'll give you a prescription to smoke. So, what's the point in having it against it in the UFC or the Bellator or one champion?
Well, and I was going to add in that the fact that I don't think really marijuana is going to do anything for you in a fight. So why would they, it really drives me nuts. I'll never forget, this would have been, oh Jesus. I don't know if you remember, this would have been about 4 or 5 years ago when Nick Diaz fought Anderson Silva. And they both got caught, I think Silva for PEDs and Nick Diaz got caught for obviously marijuana, and the guy got 4 years suspension. And you got to wonder, what is marijuana going to do for you in a fight? I mean, literally, it's going to impair you, if anything.
Yeah. I mean, I've had guys, tell me that they've smoked before sparring and stuff like that. It helps them focus or whatever. But, I've tried and, I'm like, bam, 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 getting hit the whole time. So,
yeah. And that's it. I mean, these big organizations, they got to stop doing it, because it's most fighters I've talked to, they all have said, yeah, I do, I smoke or I, ingest whatever, whether it's, during training or after the fight to recover. And it's most fighters, it's becoming such a popular and such a natural thing that people do that it should just be legalized everywhere, and it should be just a natural thing that you can do while in competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Now, kind of just giving you a couple more questions here. So, what is it like? What would be a fighter that you've been looking up to, or a fighter that you enjoy watching?
Enjoy watching and looking up to. Um, Man, I've got exciting fighters in my gym. Dan Perry. I look up to him a lot. He's helped me with every fight I've been in, and of course Brian, our coach. But kind of that I enjoy watching. The Diaz brothers. Let me see here. I think you're still there.
Oh yeah, I am.
Diaz brothers, man, those are some of my favorite fighters. I have a tattoo that Nick Diaz, one of his quotes is "Don't be scared, homie."
Oh, right on.
My ribs, so
Nice, nice. Like, what is it like? Do you think it's the idea that that it's that mentality of they don't give a fuck kind of mentality? Is that what people enjoy?
it is. It is. They're gonna go in there and they're gonna fight and they're gonna put on a show, and they don't give one fuck what anybody else thinks.
And I like the fact that they have that mentality, and even if they lose, it's all about I know, but I don't think any fighter wants to lose, but even if they lose, they're always the ones making the money, and they're always the ones that just say, okay, well, I put on a good fight. I still smacked you around a little bit. I mean, they do things that people just they enjoy watching. And I think the turning point with at least with Nate, because Nick hasn't been fighting for a long time. I think the turning point was with him and McGregor. I think that was where he really brought in that draw, because a lot of people were not liking McGregor for who he is, and he kind of put on that clinic that he did. So I think that was kind of the turning point in his career.
Yeah, 100%.
But so I guess just one for you. I mean, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Are you going to be fighting Nick? No, I'm just joking.
I'm not. Man, I'm not gonna be that fat. I'm only like 5'7". So.
I know.
No, man. There's guys I've always would like to fight, and, but man, I'm fighting. I still want to be fighting. I'll be 30 in 5 years. Hopefully fighting for a major organization, whether it be Bellator or UFC. If I stay on the same path and I work my ass off like I have been, and I keep fighting the toughest guys I can find, then what's that any going to change when I get to the UFC? They're just going to be just as tough, right?
Mm-hmm. With the UFC having the Contender Series, they typically take a lot of fighters that are up and coming fighters. Giving yourself, a few more wins, maybe getting on a good win streak. Is that an option that you would be looking at?
Oh yeah, 100%. I know they're actually Brian Ortega and Volkanovski are actually doing the featherweight. They're the next Ultimate Fighter. It's the 45 division, featherweight division.
That would be kind of cool if you gave him a call and be like, "Hey, come on, let's go."
I don't see it happening, but yeah, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if they're doing like 145ers or if they're going to be doing a certain weight class. I haven't seen too much about that.
I haven't either, man. I just seen that they're going to be the coaches on the next Ultimate Fighter. So.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that fight, I mean, that's kind of a weight class you fight in. So, how do you see that fight going around?
Man, I don't see anybody hanging in there with Volkanovski right now, other than of course, Max Holloway.
Of course,
see that fight again. But yeah, I don't think Brian Ortega can handle it.
Do you think it's more the power that Ortega's not going to be able to handle?
I mean, Ortega's been hit. I mean, he's been in the game a long time. He's been hit really hard, but I don't think so. I don't think he can handle it.
Yeah,
little man.
I mean, he looked really good against Korean Zombie, but I just, I think there are levels to every game. I think there's levels to every fighter. It would have to be something. He would have to get Volkanovski in that. He'd have to get a hold of him because, Volkanovski, man, he swings and he swings hard.
Yeah, he's swinging to kill every swing. There's not a lot of guys out there that that have the striking ability of Max Holloway and then power like Volkanovski does. You know, there's not, you know, you haven't seen very many guys, period, stand up and bang with Max Holloway like he does.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I know we're kind of coming up on time here. So just kind of add in about you wanting these things that you want to do in the future. So what about like any upcoming fight news? Is there anything coming up yet? Anything your team knows about?
Nothing yet. Usually we wait for the fight offers because, you know, around our area, everybody knows your name. Everybody knows who you are, what you're capable of. So, and everybody knows our gym. People don't like fighting the guys from our gym. You know, we're assholes. We want to stand. We want to fight. We're going to take you down. We're going to beat you. We're going to do everything we can. We're all around fighters. So.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Hopefully you'll get yourself a fight soon.
I hope so. We're looking, hopefully, kickboxing next. Do a kickboxing match somewhere in Oklahoma. So.
Right on, man. Well, good luck with that. And Zach, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. I appreciate you taking the time. I apologize with a little bit of the time slip, but I do appreciate you adjusting to our time. And good luck with everything in the future, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Look to talking with you again soon.